So what am I going to talk today is how Google and YouTube fights misinformation and disinformation. I will start from the mission from Google, which is not trivial because our mission is to organize the information and make it universally accessible. And this means that we are in the trust business. If users don't trust the information we provide, they will never come back to our services. And that's why this is not certainly not new, and it's a top priority to fight misinformation and disinformation. Our algorithms have always had to fight against people, organizations that wanted to cheat and use systems to appear higher in the search results, or use content farms of low quality, hidden texts, and other deceptive practices. Um, the fact that we have a long history of fighting doesn't mean that it is easier or it's a done exercise, especially because fighting this type of misinformation and disinformation content is requesting to adapt to the context that is always new. And certainly the past 2 years have been a considerable example. Think about COVID, think about the war in Ukraine, things that have never happened before and that you have to adapt to very quickly. Also, the topic is very complex because there are many different ways misinformation and disinformation come up in various products, and there are various reasons why organizations or people will produce and distribute disinformation. And so there's not only one solution to fight against it, but there has to be an articulated system of solutions. So how do we summarize them? First of all, importance of quality. Give importance to quality. Amongst others, I can cite a recent update in the algorithm for search that focuses on content, on promoting content that is helpful for the users instead of content that is produced for the search engine, for instance. Then there is the fighting of bad actors, which of course means eliminating, removing content that is not compliant with the policies or the community guidelines, but it also implies eliminating, reducing the economic incentives for people that produces disinformation content. And so this will have to do with banning from ads and from monetization. The other element that can support, that can help, is to offer more context to the users about the content that they are seeing. And in this category, I can put the info panels or the news shelves we are offering on some of our services like search or YouTube, the fact check labels that we're offering in news, or transparency reports where we are periodically disclosing to the users the results of our trust and safety teams activity that are monitoring, that are making sure that content that is inappropriate or violating policies and guidelines has been removed. And of course, this is not something we can do all on our own. And so collaboration with third parties, external experts is super relevant. And in that category, there are initiatives like fact-checking projects that we are supporting, the Trust Project in journalism, or back in 2018 already signing the EU Code of Practice on Disinformation. Now, where do we start from to go into details? So, as I said, raising up authoritative sources across our products is the basic. Take the COVID example. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have pointed to authoritative information from 170 public health organizations around the world, to make sure that whenever users were searching for content around the pandemic, they had the possibility to find immediately the sources from those organizations. I mentioned providing context. Recent launches, recent features we have launched in our products such as Google search, are super relevant from that point of view. One that I would want to mention is the about this result feature in search. So next to the search results, you see three bullets, and if you click on the three bullets, you will be provided with details about the website before you visit. And those details include the description of the website, when it was first indexed, so whether this is something very recently created, maybe ad hoc, or it's a reputable source that is there since a while, whether the connection to the site is secure, which is another very relevant piece of information, and so on. And also available in Italian, there's also the Fact Check Explorer tool, which you can see basically as a vertical search engine only running on fact-checking results. And so you go to the Fact Check Explorer tool, you type the query of the topic that you're interested in, and if there are fact-checking results for the topic, you will see them. And that's an effective way to find out about fact-checking content on specific claims. And then what happens when the information doesn't meet our guidelines? We block and we remove it in a consistent way. This is true for YouTube videos, for instance, but this is also true for advertising and for apps. So every day we take down 8 million deceptive ads to protect people from scams, and we scan 100 billion apps to make sure that they are safe. But let's take a closer look at YouTube, because this is probably the platform you are more familiar with and at the center of the attention. Of course, on YouTube, fighting misinfo and disinfo is part of the broader work we do to fight against content that violate the community guidelines. And we have an approach which we call follow the 4 R's. R for remove content that violates the policies. R for reduce the spread of harmful misinformation or of borderline material. R for raise up the authoritative sources. And finally, R for reward the trusted creators. Remove, obviously we do have policies and community guidelines, and we regularly publish a report to offer transparency on the actions that we take based on these community guidelines. Some of the most recent statistics that may be relevant for you to get an idea of the amount of the work that is being performed. Between April and June 2022, YouTube removed over 4.4 million videos that were violating the community guidelines. Of course, we're not only talking about disinformation and misinformation, but all type of violations. And 93% of these videos were first flagged by machines, artificial intelligence as the first line of identification of the videos. Those videos detected by the machines, 34% were removed before they even received a single view. And 38% of them received between 1 and 10 views before they got removed. So more than 72% of the violated videos first detected by machines received fewer than 10 views before they were removed from YouTube. And then if a channel is repeatedly violating community guidelines, we not only remove the videos, but we can also terminate the channel. And only in the second quarter of 2022, we have terminated over 3.9 million channels. The overwhelming majorities were terminated for violating spam policies. And is there an appeal system for the channels in case they get video removed or channels banned and they believe this is not appropriate? Yes, of course. And so again, just to give you an idea, in the same quarter, over 223,000 videos that were removed, that were appealed, and we reinstated 26,000 of them. because sometimes the context that can be added is relevant for a review of the process. Um, when it comes to misinformation, I can share specific stats around anti-vax misinformation related to COVID-19. And just to give you an idea, again, in the second quarter of 2022 globally, we removed more than 35,000 videos for violating the vaccine provisions of our COVID-19 misinformation policy. And those provisions were in effect since October 2020. Now, is removing videos or blocking channels always the solution? Sometimes not. Sometimes it's not, because there may be borderline content that is not fully violative of the content, but it's advisable not to be prompted. And so the idea is here, the second R comes in, reduce the consumption of this borderline content by not recommending it. And the amount of consumption of this content that comes from our recommendation is significantly below 1% of all of the content that comes from recommendations. The third element I mentioned was raising the qualitative content. And to do that, for instance, we have information panels and news shells that go up on the home page of YouTube, including in Italy with videos from news sources in case of specific events pop up and require when the event is very recent and it's very hard to get, there is no history, it's very hard to get an understanding of whether content is accurate or not, because there's no way to compare. And then I mentioned earlier the importance of reducing the economic incentives to create misinformation and disinformation. Here, the arts is the area where obviously we are acting on. And in terms of rewarding the creators of good content through monetization, of course, the other side of the coin is to avoid that bad content or inappropriate content or borderline content can be monetized sorry, through advertising. But this is not only true about YouTube. The policies around bad ads, what we call bad ads, are global and also go on all of the other products where we have advertising. And we do publish quite regularly a report on the advertising and the policies related to advertising. And so if you search for that, you will find a lot of details and statistics about this. Just to give you an idea, in 2021, we removed over 3.4 billion ads that were violating the policies. And the actions can also go to blocking or restricting the possibility of a publisher to serve ads on their pages, and so to be rewarded for and earn money from this activity. In specifically talking about the war in Ukraine, for instance, as soon as the war started, we did institute what is called a sensitive event, that is a policy related to prohibiting ads from profiting from a specific situation or exploiting the situation. And so it was nobody was allowed to run advertising around this. Then the things I have described are related to the initiatives around products and how do we fight misinformation and disinformation within the products. Apart from that, those initiatives are complemented by investments that we make in order to cooperate with partners. And so the Google News Initiatives, for instance, which is an initiative that cooperates with publishers, has provided verification training to more than 90,000 journalists, or is surfacing independent fact checks for specific content. And also, we have a safety and dedicated engineering center on content responsibility, which is located in Dublin. And it's a regional hub for experts, experts from Google, but also experts from other organizations and for regulators to look at and cooperate at the way we tackle illegal and harmful content, and make sure that there's an emphasis on openness and transparency of these initiatives. Because as I said before, this is a really gigantic task that no company and no organization can tackle on its own. And cooperating is extremely critical to get to results, always better results.